So what does a lineman, a Hollywood movie, and an organization honoring fallen line workers all have in common? The answer is Chad Dubea. And in this episode, I sit down with Chad, a man whose journey through this industry spans decades. From getting his start working with Red Simpson to building multiple successful companies and helping develop and fund the Hollywood film Life on the Line starring John Travolta. Chad has touched this industry in many ways. He's also the founder of the Fallen Linemen Organization. We talk about the real pressures of owning a line company, the cultural shifts happening across the industry, why trust and safety have to be the foundation of every crew, and why Chad felt it was so important to show the world what this job really takes. This isn't just a conversation about business, it's about the responsibility that comes with the trade and the brotherhood behind the power lines. Let's talk about it.
You're listening to PowerGridTalks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms. I'm your host, Tom Williamson, a journeyman lineman with over 15 years in the trade. Here we bring you real stories and real conversations from the field to the executive suites of the electric utility world. It's about the people who keep the power flowing and the grid strong. Let's get to work.
All right, so today for this episode of PowerGridTalks, we are sitting down with a man whose fingerprints are all over the industry, from the field to the offices and even out in Hollywood. It's Mr. Chad Dubea.
Hello.
How are we doing today?
Great. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Stuff just aligned and it just worked out right.
Yes, it did.
Pretty awesome situation.
Yeah, perfect time to be at the Lineman Ranch.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about, there's so much to dive into here, but let's talk about your start in the industry, right? So how'd you get to be a lineman?
Yeah. So my dad was actually in the contracting world of Red Simpson, and probably a lot of people know about the Red Simpson years.
They were big back in the day.
Yeah. And he was a division manager. And, you know, as long as I can remember, was with Red Simpson. And in the summers, at 16, he'd throw me out on the crews and, go work. And he'd tell the foreman, hey, make sure you work his ass off. So he don't want to,
awesome.
He wants to go to school. Make sure you work.
Make him realize this is work.
That's right. This is work. But that didn't work because I love the work.
That's cool. Backfired on him a little bit.
Right, it did, yeah. I love the work. And but so every summer going there, and he would send me on transmission crews and this and that. But eventually, whenever I got out of high school and had a baby, and at first actually he wouldn't give me a job, but he made me go work other places. Yep. And then eventually I was like, man, you got to give me a break. And
for sure.
he hired me, and from there started back at the bottom and worked our way up. And I feel very honored. There's a guy in the industry, and his name, he's actually a Hall of Famer as well, Clifton Drawdy.
Okay.
And was on Clifton Drawdy's crew coming up. And in our area, the Drawdy brothers are like, some of the best. Yeah.
That's cool.
So, and then John Clark and Rick Cook and those guys like that. So was around those guys. And, and it was always, I guess, having my dad as a manager, right? I think that helped my career because I didn't want to be looked at as some lazy ass boss's kid.
Yep.
I wanted people to want me on their crew.
Yeah.
And so working hard and I think, did that, and worked on a lot of people's crews and got all the, all the different parts of the industry, the underground, the overhead, the transmission and all that. And so really did that and worked our way up and eventually into management and then into starting our own company.
That's cool. And a lot of people don't realize working for your dad is probably harder than working for anyone else. He's going to be harder on you as being his son than he is anybody else in the company, I'm sure, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, without a doubt. But it was, I think you definitely look at it, and sometimes the boss's kids are, you hear them, oh, he ain't worth a crap. But that's just, that was a driving force for me to be better.
Not
actually.
be that guy. Yeah, that's
guy.
cool. That's cool. So let's talk about some of those early mentors and some of the tough lessons you learned. So you were, sounds like, pretty lucky in the early days to be underneath some pretty good dudes, right?
Yeah.
So did they take you underneath their wing, or were they, hey kid, you're never going to make it type of guys?
Yeah, no, they, of course, they took me under their wing. I'm a pretty outgoing guy. Yeah. I was a worker, so, it's easy I was always in there getting, wanting to be involved and things like that. So, yeah, I can remember, a lot of different things. The first time I put, we reconducted a job, and we had to climb. Me and John Clark, as my foreman at the time, he, I'm up there. He let me go climb, and we're from the wire from the dollies to the insulator, and I'm up there trying to fight. I can't remember the wire size, probably 795 or something like. But
bigger than you wanted.
Yeah, I couldn't fit, and he was like, "Hey, let me come up there and do it. Nope, I'm going to get it. And I just kept fighting with it. And eventually I had to say, all right, come show me.
Yep.
And he climbed up there and he showed me how to just roll it over and right in.
Like it was
Man,
nothing.
it was so easy. And I'm like, all right, I go to the next one, and it just had to be shown. So that's definitely one thing. I talk to John still quite a bit, and we laugh about those kind of times and being with Clifton and just going up through the industry, man. It's just been good and seeing a lot of different aspects, different ways of doing things. Also getting back to seeing, with having a dad that was in the management. So you could go home, I'll never forget a guy, Jeremy Hazelton. He was a lineman, and he'd ask me, where's your dad at? Well, he's in Mexico. And, I bought a lot of trips to Mexico, but never been to Mexico. So I get to hear from the field at an early age gripes about the company.
Oh, yeah.
And then at home, get to hear from the company the gripes about the people. And
got to see both sides.
Yeah, I got to see both sides.
That's a cool
I
aspect.
think it is. I really think it helped, probably.
For sure.
Right. It was a contributing factor, maybe.
It was making a difference to you before you even knew it was making a difference to you,
Yep,
right?
that's
Yeah,
right,
that's pretty awesome. I love how those old timers in this trade didn't have to be the strongest or the fastest, but they knew how to be efficient,
That's right.
man. They knew how to figure stuff out.
Yep. And hey, we were talking a little bit a while ago, though, how the change, how easy things are today to get done as from back then. But yet, that we should be more efficient and because of the tools and the equipment that we have today. And sometimes we're not as.
I mean, what we have gained in efficiency, I think we've kind of slacked off on the hard work part of it, right? Guys back then knew what hard work was, and they were not afraid of it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. There was a lot of pride, for sure.
So what point was it in the career that you knew, hey, this is going to be for me? I'm not going to go to college like Dad was hoping I would. I'm going to be in this trade. Was there like a moment that you can think of?
I don't think so. No,
It
not really.
just happened over time.
Right. I remember just being with Clifton, working on that crew, and getting a call from a guy that was working down South Texas to come run some of his crews. And I didn't want to do it at the time. So I was like, man, I'm comfortable being a lineman. Everything's great.
Loving it.
Yeah, loving it. Why would I want? Why would I want to go do that? And he ended up talking me into it. So moved my family down to Harlingen, and started that management into management, and that gave me my first really opportunity with a group of people, and then taking those guys on storm and. It became in your blood, right? Just like you, man. It gets in your blood, and now that's it.
It is cool too. Like you don't even realize that it's happening, but it's happening right in front of you. Like you said, when you're a journeyman lineman, I know a lot of journeyman linemen out there that love being a journeyman lineman and don't ever want to do anything else.
Right.
Until you realize that, hey, some of this other stuff is cool too.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
But being a journeyman lineman is probably the best job in the trade. It gets a lot more headaches as you keep climbing that ladder, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. You put after the day's over, we just go home, go to the hotel or whatever it is. You don't have to worry about it till the next day.
Yep. Let's talk about some of the projects you've done over the years, right? So I know you've done a lot of projects, and it doesn't even have to be big, massive projects, but is there one that sticks out that you're like, man, this project meant something. This project was awesome. I'll always remember this project. Is there one of those?
Well, of course, it's the last project I did on a crew.
Okay.
And that's just there in Beaumont. I drive by it all the time. We did a road widening work with Clifton on his crew. And so, I go by that. The poles are leaning a little bit now. And that's been, I don't know how, 35 years ago, whatever it was. And I'm like, that's probably my biggest project that I can remember. Of course, you go around town in Beaumont, where I grew up, on the Entergy system and stuff, and see poles that we did here and there. But
the typical lineman, hey, I did that.
The one that really meant was that last one that was the last job we did before I moved up, I guess.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Last time we're really putting on those hooks and being a lineman, right? Yeah. The job itself evolves over time, right? So what do you think some of the biggest evolutions are on the safety side of it from back when you started to today? Because I know safety's changed a lot since then.
Right.
What's some of the biggest factors that have changed?
Well, I think a lot of the power companies and the car, they have driven safety to their contractors. So we're an extension of their workforce. And so that's really helped the contracting side a lot to get things in line and get safer and more, we have your processes and procedures and all that. And so I think that was really a big turning point in our industry. Now, I do have to say that, I feel like, I told you before, I was out of the industry for about 5 years after my wife had passed away. And now getting back into it, it's seeing it 5, 6 years later, it has changed a lot in that little small time.
Yeah.
And I do kind of feel like because there's so much work going on today, and look, I may be out of the step here, but I feel like we have taken a step back on our safety expectations because of the work needing to get done, which, I don't know if that's a good thing or bad thing, but I look back and say, man, some of the stuff we were doing, back with T&D and we're not doing that today. And like, why aren't we? And now we're in the process of having to rebuild back to where we already were.
Yeah.
So I think it's, and I kind of worry about that, honestly, because I feel like we have taken a little step back and we need to refocus that on and it's regime changes if you think about it. So power company guys that leave, and all the ideas and things that they required contractors to do and things, those guys are gone now, and new regimes coming up, and then they have different ideas, and they let those kind of rules and things get they go to the side, and now they got their own stuff, and to me it just kind of really feels like we're in this we're redoing what we've already done.
Yeah, and you're onto something there, and I have similar mindset about it. So to me, it's a change of the way things were done. So for years at these power companies, the people that were in charge of them came from the field.
Right.
And they did that for years. Back when you started, I'm sure the head cheese at that power company down there was a lineman before. So he knew what it took to be safe and do things safely and that kind of stuff, but also get things done. The industry went through a change there where they brought people from colleges who had degrees and not necessarily earned it with blood, sweat, and tears. And then those guys started trying to tell people how to do things. And production started getting pushed a little bit more there for a while in the industry. And I'm not saying production's a bad thing by any means, but going too fast and trying to get things done and only focusing on dollars and cents is a way to find ourselves in a more unsafe environment, right?
Without a doubt. And man, I never even thought about that with the the guys that were from the field, and now we just got people from colleges.
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on.
That's right.
Yeah, I think that makes a big difference.
It does. And and just if we can, you talk about production. Without a doubt, man, like the only place you can start cutting anything is in safety.
Yep.
So if you're not planning it, man, I see that so much too these days. We wait till the next morning until we're planning our job. Back in the day, I'll never forget, Tim and Cliff, they would drop us off at the hotel and they would go ride that job out because they didn't want to pay us to be riding around looking at the job, but they would go look at the job and they would get a plan. The next morning we had a plan for the next day and things were just, and look, you're having fun out there, laughing and joking, having fun versus being a bump on the log. All that just really matters. And with production and safety and everything. So the only area we could cut is safety, unfortunately.
Yeah. And those guys that you talk about that were iconic guys for you, right? They would drop you guys off at the hotel and go back out to the job and drive it out and plan it out and stuff. You see a lot less general foreman doing that these days.
Right.
Everybody is the, hey, what's in it for me mindset instead of, hey, this is what I've got to do for my role, for these guys to make sure everything goes right. And I feel like some of that has gotten lost over the years.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. But the thing that I ask myself is, can you bring it back? And yes, it could be brought back.
Yeah, it can be.
It's
going to be a slow change.
It's a slow back change. It didn't change back like it is overnight. It took several years now. So a slow change to get it. But man, the workloads are just, it's unbelievable the work out there.
The amount of work that needs to happen on this grid right now is bigger than most people realize.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So lots of opportunity there. Yeah. So you talked about you were a lineman and you transitioned to the management side of it. So let's talk about what that looked like and what company that was with and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that was Red Simpson.
Yep.
And so I started with them full time in like 96. And then about 2002 is when I went down to Harlingen and got my leadership role.
Okay.
And then from there, Red Simpson had gotten bought out by Pike.
Yep.
In 2004, maybe. About 2004, because we stayed there for about a year and then started T&D Solutions.
Okay.
Left Pike and started our own company. And, we're able to
you say that like it's so nonchalant. Start our own company, just another day. That's a big deal.
It was. It really was. And look, starting a company today was different than that time. For today's way more competition. Yeah. A lot harder to get into, power companies and things like that. So it was a different time.
Yeah.
And the things that don't want to get into all
No.
why I left Pike and all that stuff.
No, that's not important. That's not important. We all have phases in our lives, right? And sometimes you just phase out of one spot and go into another.
Right.
And it's just life and how it works.
Yeah,
So,
that's right. Yeah.
So these people say every day, these companies just pop up everywhere. There's companies all over the place. I'm telling you right now, companies do not just pop up. It doesn't work like that, right? There's a lot that goes into it, especially the ones that are going to be here for the longevity of things, or are doing things out of passion instead of chasing that dollar sign. And I think companies get a bad reputation for something. Oh, they're everywhere. You throw a hat and hit a line company. That's not the case, especially good line companies, right?
Yep.
There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears that goes in behind that. So let's talk about the D&T phase. So how did all that start? What part of the country were you in?
So with T&D,
Yeah.
So that was it was Texas. So it was right after Rita, Katrina.
Oh,
Rita.
yeah.
So it was a perfect time to start.
Yeah.
Opportunity to start. And we started with 15 guys that came to the company, and and that was 2005, October 2005. From there to and we built it up organically ourselves to about 450 people in the 5 years.
So in 5 years, you managed to get 450 people to believe in you guys as a company and the culture that you had and the things you were doing to basically follow you into battle. Because that's what line work is every day, right?
Right.
It's a battle.
Right. And
That's cool.
And if you think some of those guys that I worked for in Beaumont, Buddy Park, Tim Draw, all those guys, they came work with me.
Yeah.
So, they trusted enough, and I trusted them.
Knew.
Yeah, they knew. Yeah. And look, we had a purpose and a mission to do, and the stars aligned, and it just
That's
happened.
awesome.
It was great.
That's awesome. So as an owner in the utility industry, what's some of the biggest challenges that come with that back then or even today?
Well, today's a lot different than back then, but back, it's always cash flow, I guess.
Sure. Capital is a big problem. Yeah.
Cash flow.
Yeah.
And can you put more crews on, and how much, because your customers, the power companies, they're not going to pay you for 60 to 90, 120 days.
Yeah.
So front loading that cash flow is the biggest struggle, really.
Yeah. You're paying guys to put food on the table,
right?
But you're not getting food put on your table for a while.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the hardest thing. And so making sure that you don't grow too fast. I just recently got back in the industry and partnered with a guy, actually two partners, but one was on a non-union company, AMP, and one's with a union company with Tim, with Powerline Construction Services. And AMP was, they basically grew too fast, and they were in financial trouble. And so came in and was going to help the owner there, and things didn't work out with he and I, and he ended up had to leave because he was sinking the company more and more. Yeah,
just couldn't get it.
Couldn't get it. He thought that growth was good, and you can't grow if you're not being able to. If your pricing doesn't match what you're paying, or of course it has to be more than what you're paying your guys. A lot of guys think, oh, they're only paying me $55 an hour. That's way more cost than that. It's, a lot of times it's double.
Yeah, well, it's like a race. A sprinter doesn't run a marathon for a reason.
That's right. Exactly.
So yeah.
So I think that's those two things is just cash flow is the biggest, of course. And today though, today is hiring the right people. Because there's so much work. There's so many people coming from all over these lineman college, all this stuff that, and there's two different sides too. So the union side and the non-union side. The union side, they have their apprenticeship program and things have to go to those levels. The non-union side, there's not that.
Yep. Little less standard.
Little less standard. Now there are like TD Power Skills, which is a lot of people use for their apprenticeship program. That's what we're using for that company. And, but getting these guys from these lineman colleges that are, they
think they're a lineman when they leave the college.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And so that's the struggle right now for me is with this getting back into all this is the pride is one, and just having people that really care about what they're doing. I think of more of it today is more so than not, it's more of just a job than a career.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're starting all over at building that culture again and getting people to buy into the mindset of it, because that's really what it takes.
Right.
They've got to believe in the culture and the mindset to know that when they go out there and do a dangerous job, you're going to be there supporting them in the right way.
That's right.
And you're not going to put them in dangerous situations.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Complete trust. And there it is. Trust. That's it. That's it.
From those years of, building T&D and doing all of that, because it's a passion project, right? Blood, sweat, tears, hours. I mean, people don't understand, as a business owner, you're reading emails at 1 o'clock in the morning, you're responding to group messages at 2 a.m. and people are like, what are you doing? I'm doing what I have to do to survive, right? So in those times, what are you most proud of that you did while you were there?
Well, to do what we did, to go from 15 crews to 450, and it was not just me. I had a whole team of Eagles,
for sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You surround yourself with the right people, and you can get things done, with relationships. So then going through of the pride of doing what we did, to build a company from nothing with 15 people and TND at one time was fairly large. We were kind of not nationwide, but we had a big area. Yeah. And ultimately we sold the company in 2010. Didn't have a plan to sell it, at the time, but somebody came. You have everything. My house, we have everything as collateral. Your house, you have all this stuff.
It's all leveraged.
Yeah. So you're like, oh well, we're not interested in selling, but.
Yeah, if I could take a sigh of relief for a minute, it might be nice.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Because one incident from somebody out there doing something they shouldn't do could destroy the whole company.
Here's what scares me in today's day and age, and maybe it scares me for no reason, I don't know, but all it takes is one guy who stayed out drinking too long the night before and comes in and is still kind of tore up and gets in one of those company trucks and runs through a stoplight or something, and your company's done.
That's it. I know.
That's scary.
It is. That is.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of these guys don't really, I don't think they grasp it. They don't really know exactly you can even have, if you have an incident on this customer, it could affect you on other customers. Yeah. With your OSHA, incident rates and things like that. Yep. So,
all that's tracked anymore.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. From running a company as a contractor and being in the industry and stuff, what's something that you wish some of these new companies that are just starting would know? What piece of advice would you have for them?
Take care of your people, for sure, right? Take care of your people. Love your people. Be willing to do whatever it is for them. Of course, people may not do that back for you. 50% will, 50% won't, kind of thing. But love your people. Provide them a great place to work. Yeah. Competitive pays and this and that. But there's differences in all that, but is it really get down to pay? A lot of guys, that's all they care about is, what am I getting paid today? Yeah. Looking more of the futures and things. But really just caring for your people is be my biggest thing.
And making them real people, right?
Right.
So many of these people who are out here going through the fire for you and putting in the sweat, blood, and tears and stuff like that, these companies, they don't want the person that's in charge to sit in an office and never come out and see them and never talk to them. And when they do talk to them, not get out of the truck, just watch them from a distance. You gotta be involved in the people, right?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, mate, I get out there. I love getting out there. I'll go get a shovel. They always try to take a shovel from me. I'm like, hey, look, this is my fun time right here. That's right.
I'm going to turn my phone off. I'm going to leave it in the truck. I'm going to go be one of the guys.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. For sure.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the selling of that, right? So I'm sure that was something that you thought long and hard about, and you're kind of like, oh man, what do I do? What am I going to do next? That kind of thing. What was the next step after selling that company?
Selling. So when we were out of capital, you don't have so much capital, like we talked about it. And so selling opened up capital for us, right? And we were able to go buy another company and then roll them into T&D, and we were able to, we doubled in size, in a year that way, just by being able to take on a financial partner. So I think that's, and so it just depends. If you have enough capital and you can keep growing that way, great. But it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot of capital. Yeah. So I think selling is something that's inevitable, really, if you want to keep your vision going.
For the growth of a company, you have to do it at some point.
Yes, you have to do it.
Yeah.
So, and I hate to talk about it and stuff, because I know that it's maybe a sore issue, because a lot of times these companies buy companies and they totally change it and it goes to crap. Yeah. And so that's where the problem is. It's these buyers that buy it, and then they don't keep the culture. They think that these private equity guys that have all this money, that, we can put another penny to the bottom line. Yeah. All right, well, you take that penny to the bottom line, where you're taking it from our people who we care about, and they start seeing that you don't care about them. Yeah. And then it just, morale goes down, and things just start falling apart.
And in some industries and in some jobs, that might work. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But in an industry that has as many risks and as many dangers and as many variables as Linework does,
Right.
it's hard to do that bottom dollar, right?
is,
It's hard to run it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Earlier, I mentioned that you have fingerprints all over this industry, right? And we've talked about the field work a little bit. We've talked about the office side a little bit. Let's talk about the Hollywood side a little bit, right?
That's what I'm proud of, but embarrassed of at the same time, you know?
But it is so cool, right? So for those of you who don't know, there's a movie out there about line work, and Chad had a hand in it, right?
Yep.
So let's talk about that story.
All right. So, it was after we sold the second time, because the people that bought us ended up selling us. And as we did that, it's like, what can I do to give back to the industry? And letting people know about it doesn't just take us, go and buy a light switch and turn it on and things like that. So, it's kind of a really long story, so I would have to cut it down. But the guy that ended up writing the original script, I met him. He actually did a tattoo of T&D Solutions on my on my arm. And while I'm doing that, I'm telling him about the industry and telling him I want to do a movie. And he's like, "Oh, I've done a movie before." Primo Brown. He's like, "I've done a movie before." And I'm like, "Oh, well, cool. Well, we're going to do this movie."
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
I had him. He came and we went around T&D and started talking to a bunch of people and got ideas for the script and all this stuff. And he put a script together that was fairly decent. And so we started that company and we ended up meeting the right people. I don't know how it worked. God,
just
for
life,
sure.
right?
Fate, whatever it was, but met the right people and was able to do this movie that we talked about getting done. And and after that, then Hollywood, of course, gets involved with it and changes things. And I actually thought I'd be able to sit there with the director and be like, "Hey, that ain't right. We got it." But that wasn't the case. It was like, you stand over there.
This is our world now.
It's our world now, exactly.
Yeah.
So, but it was, like I said, it was a great experience. And look, there's nobody more disappointed in, of some of the parts of it than myself, of course.
But that's any project that you have that much passion and vision for, right? You have it in your brain that it's going to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And we're our own worst critics. I tell my wife that around the house, when we have big projects around the house, a lot of times I don't do them because I know if I do them, I'm going to see every flaw in them, right? If I have someone else come in and do them while I'm out working, then I don't see the flaws they made. I'm not so critical of them, but I'm real critical of myself, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty natural. The movie was awesome, man. It's hard to translate what we do to the screen.
Right.
You're never going to capture the full aspect of it, right?
Yeah.
But it was pretty cool.
And that's where, so getting on that, I would fight it every evening in the trailers, like, we got it. And the guy, Marvin Peart, that ended up helping me directing the movie and all that, he's like, "You should have done a documentary." I'm like, "No, people won't watch a documentary. We got to do a movie to get them interested in, in the industry." That's right. I want people to watch it and understand it. He's like, "You should have just done a all the time, documentary." No, we have to get this movie done and there were several reasons to do the movie. There was one, to let people that didn't know anything about the industry, let them know that what went into it. Does it do that? Maybe it does that a little bit. The second was, and as men, and we're getting more and more women in our industry, which is great, but as men, we don't typically like to talk a lot. We get home in the evening, our wife's like, "How'd your day go?" "It's great. Yeah, everything's good." Yep. She'll tell us, she put on her shoes and she loves to tell us for the day.
Yep.
But for us, we don't talk about it. So letting the wives see a little glimpse into the industry.
Yeah.
And that's why at the first the lady says, no shortcuts and things like that. But so that was the second. The third was to show the dangers of it. And some of this that did get cut out of it, working side of it, was because I wanted us linemen to see somebody doing something stupid and be like, "Why is he doing that?" But knowing that we've done that, or knowing that we take those shortcuts, so that kind of work side of stuff kind of got pushed away. And there was another reason, and it was for the union and non-union. Yeah. So we actually, in the movie, and I grew up non-union, and just for what it was, being down in South Texas, and it's the location. But never had any pride. It doesn't matter to me. We're all the same industry. So showing that, and wanted the movie to kind of bring that together. So in the bar scene, it was supposed to be actually union, non-union guys there, and these bikers come in and we stand together to go against them. Cool. But that kind of got put out of there. You don't really notice that in the movie, but that was going to be, that aspect, but really to show that we're all brothers, really, and we're all family
in the trade.
That's right.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
That's cool.
I think we achieved some of the things we set out to do. Some we didn't, but You know, it was a
So did you
good
get to meet
experience.
John Travolta?
Oh yeah,
That's
he
awesome.
he stayed. He actually stayed at my house in Beaumont. He came to our training facility. We have a little training facility in Coosa, Texas, and he climbed the pole for a day or two, a little bit and stuff. So
That's cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
But one thing I have to say about John too, if I could mention on that, we had some of the fallen lineman wives come up to the filming,
Okay.
and he actually hand wrote a letter to every single lady that came up to visit. I mean, he was just a genuinely caring individual, and
That's so cool.
yeah.
For someone who really isn't involved in the trade and probably didn't know much about it until you taught it to him, right?
Right.
For him to recognize the pain that is going on there with those families with the fallen linemen is pretty cool.
Yep, it sure was. And I think really, even on set, so everybody on set would say we didn't know what all it took to get power, Sharon Stone talking to her after the thing. I mean, it was just, it really was eye-opening for the people that were in the, doing the movie, acting in the movie and stuff, because nobody really never thought about it. So.
And I'm sure it was a cool opportunity for you to be able to talk and have those conversations, right? Because it is cool to share our trade with other people. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. How do you think the public responded to the movie? You think it went pretty well?
Well, from time to time, I look on the responses and things. And I think you could tell people in our industry. You could tell which ones are in our industry because of the comments that they make versus the ones that aren't in our industry. That this is a great movie, this and that. So
industry people are so critical.
That's right, it is.
We are so critical.
But really, I just hope that I could let everybody know that it was out of my heart to do the movie to bring it to light. And I get all the negativity about it. There's nobody more negative than me.
Well,
funded it, did all this stuff, and it didn't turn out like I wanted, but it is what it is.
If they don't like it, they can go out and make a better one if that's what they think they can do. It's not that easy. It's not that easy. I do feel like that the message was there, right? The impact the movie had on the general public was it brought awareness to the trade. It made people realize that it is dangerous. We're not just going out and flipping a light switch on. And I think it made them respect the fact that, hey, it takes a little bit longer than what you think it should sometimes. Right. But that's because we're doing some crazy stuff out there.
Right, for sure. Yeah.
You mentioned the Fallen Linemen. Mm-hmm. Talk to me about your involvement with that and what you've got going on there, because you've got an organization that supports that, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So, and it kind of goes back to, I guess, around 2002, whenever there was a big ice storm in Oklahoma. And the crew I was on at the time, we were up there, but I volunteered to stay. And my crew had left. Delbert Bush and Roger Spears was the specific guy I'm going to talk about, but they left and had to go back home, and I volunteered to stay and keep working. Money was good.
Yeah.
Never forget about my first surround sound system after that 2002
It was
storm.
big time, yeah.
Yeah, it was big. So, but while I was up there, Roger Spears, who was on the same crew as was, he ends up getting burnt. And the operator was booming up, and he was putting in a anchor. And so as he was booming up to put the anchor, he got it in line, and so Roger got burnt. And so as soon as that happened, of course, he was a buddy of mine. I flew back to Beaumont. He was in the Beaumont area, and sitting in front of his bed the day his parents had to pull the plug. They had to make a decision, and they pulled the plug on Roger. And I'll never forget just watching him gasping for air. And he ended up surviving. He was a vegetable, and to this day I don't know whatever happened to him. But watching that, and then fast forward, all these years later, and we had sold the company and had the means to do something. So it was like, is there a foundation to help? And internally as a company, we would. If somebody had something go wrong, we would pass the hat. Exactly. Pass the hat. So then it's like, why not do something that everybody could be involved in? And
pass a bigger hat.
Pass a bigger hat. And not maybe just for our company, for the whole industry. And so, looked around and there was one that started about the same time, which is NSUJL, which is a great foundation as well. And we kind of both started about the same time. And so we were kind of, I guess, the pioneers of the foundations. And today there's lots of them. And, I think that's great. The more that we can have out there.
Enough of them.
That's right. The more we can have helping the families, because, and here's the deal. A lot of times, the guys, what happen most of the time is going to be the guy does something he shouldn't have done. He knows better. And you can have these freak accidents where cars run off the road and kill somebody and stuff. But in a work environment, somebody did something they shouldn't have, and a lot of times the companies are protected because they signed off saying they know they shouldn't have done this, right?
Yeah.
And then so, but does that help the family? No, it doesn't help the family. The family still are left to pick up the pieces. And really, and here's another thing is, so linemen, we making all this money. We love to stay in debt. Right. So now as a guy, we've produced all this debt for our families, and now we do something we shouldn't have done. We're out of here. We're not here. We pass away. We get killed.
Yeah.
And our families are left to pick up all these pieces. And typically, in our industry, I don't know if it's still the same, but typically the ladies don't work.
That's it.
And so they don't have a means. And so it's really, that's what kind of drove the whole idea of.
So that was the passion behind the project.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's a very real passion, right? Our industry takes so many hours of our time, because it's not just 9 to 5, go in Monday through Friday and do your job. It's nights, it's weekends, it's holidays. And a lot of the spouses that are home with these kids don't have any other option but, hey, someone's got to be there.
That's right.
Right? So they stay at home with the kids and do that kind of stuff. And lucky enough for us in our industry, our paychecks are big enough to support that a lot of times. So we're fortunate in that until something happens.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah. And of course, we definitely have to have a shout out to the line wives out there that do put up with all of that. And
it's hard.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
That side doesn't get enough recognition, and they don't get enough credit because it is hard. Linemen are hard to deal with anyhow, but their schedules and their temperaments and being tired all the time. So I worked at the utility for 10 years, and I answered my phone a lot. Right. I liked what I did. I wanted to be there. I wanted to help people. I mean, if we would go to a movie, a lot of times we would drive separate, or I'd have clothes in the trunk of the car and we'd leave a movie and she'd drop me off at work and then go back home. I mean, it happened a bunch.
Right.
So whenever I left that and went out and worked in California, I had been working out there for probably 3 or 4 months, and I'd come home every once in a while and spend. My wife told me one day, she's like, I feel like I see you more now than I did when you worked here.
Huh.
And that's crazy to think about, because I was physically at home, but I was tired. I was falling asleep on the couch. I was angry at something most of the time because I was tired.
Yes.
And she recognized that. She didn't tell it to me in the moment, but after the fact, she's like, you're working in California, but I feel like you're here more.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah. Yep. But that's the kind of stuff they go through, man.
Yep. And man, I wouldn't want their job by no means.
No. I couldn't do it. So that created the Fallen Linemen Organization, right? Okay. So what's the mission behind that? I know it's helping the families, right?
Yeah.
But beyond just helping the families, what's the passion behind that?
Yeah. So there's several different aspects of it, and then we getting from that to the memorial, which sits behind us is at TND we actually had a guy that died in the line of duty. But he was a younger guy. He didn't have a family. I mean, he had mom and dad, but he didn't have a wife or kids. So, at that point, it's like, well, the foundation doesn't, it's not going to have anything to do for him. So what can we do? And that's where a memorial idea came from. It's like, okay, we're going to get a memorial. So I looked around if there was a Fallen Line memorial, and there wasn't. And so we made a memorial, cool. and then, Joseph Yo-Yo was, his name didn't die in vain, with that. There's a whole story really about, it happened in Beaumont as well. There's a train hit a trailer that was going over a railroad track. They thought they were stuck. They were hung on the track, and the two guys were walking to make sure they weren't stuck.
Yep.
And they didn't see the train coming down the line, and the train hit the trailer and threw the trailer into Yo-Yo and killed him.
Wow.
Instantly. And so from there, it's like we built a little memorial for his family.
Yeah.
And we had his family come out that on a Saturday, and we presented the memorial, to them and things like that. And getting into a little story with that memorial. I think Mike was talking about was so we have this memorial set up that we're going to do on a Saturday. We had two guys, Danny and a guy named Daniel, we call him Cornbread, that were getting the site ready. And they're like, they looked at the memorial. It wasn't a memorial like this. It was just a guy climbing a pole, of course, and had his name and everything in the years. But they're like, it looks kind of bland, bland without anything. So we're going to go to this, let's look up, see if there's any flowers or anything that has lineman industry or power or anything in a plant.
Yep.
And they Googled that, Cornbread Googled that, and didn't come up with anything, but they decided just to go to the local hardware store to go get some plants to spice it up. And so they go there, they get some ceramic boots, of course, and they put his hard hat on there, but they get looking at for some plants, they couldn't really find anything that they liked there.
Yep.
But as they walked in there, they did have some roses, and they even tell them tell the stories a lot better than me, but I'm just telling their story. But they're walking through there, they see all these roses, and at first they're like, nah, we don't want roses, kind of feminine or whatever. But they go look at all the other plants and couldn't find anything. So they're like, well, there's some roses out there. And Cornbread says there was one that was a different color than the other. So that could be like Yo-Yo. He's a unique guy. And roses, they have thorns on. If you get too close to lineman, you could get stuck. So they made it okay to lie.
I love the thought process.
They made the thought of, okay, making it okay to get a rose. So they get that rose, they get it. They're going out there. Danny is digging the hole for the rose. Cornbread pulls the rose out of the plastic container, and between the dirt and the plastic container was the tag. They didn't see the tag, didn't know. Pull the tag out, and it was a high voltage rose.
No kidding.
Yep.
That's awesome.
It was a high voltage rose. Look, I get chills on that, and hear Danny tell that story, he'll cry. But
talk about fate. That's
like, what's the chances of that? And so that's, we put that on there. And now I have high voltage roses all around my house, of course.
Cool. Yeah. I didn't even know there was such a thing.
That's right.
That's cool. Yeah. I love that it's formed out of passion, right? This isn't just a sign on a wall. This isn't just something that somebody's talking about in a meeting. This thing was formed out of passion because those people meant something to you.
Right.
And they mean something to other people too.
Yep.
Right. So I love that they have a place where they can go and pay their respects, and that name is always going to be remembered. And if you've got somebody out there that's been injured in the line of duty as a lineman, right? Reach out to Chad. Yes. Let him know about it. Maybe he already does, maybe he doesn't, but we can't document all of them because it happens too often in this industry. Right.
I'm glad you bring that up because we're here at the Lineman Ranch, and we're having a memorial built here. It just makes sense to have it all together with Andy Price, and the relationship that we built with him and the museum has been outstanding. And so it's been in the works for quite a while. In God's timing, it came together.
Yeah. And
so we are building a memorial here, and we have some ideas of what we're doing, and to be able to document all those people because we don't want to leave anybody out.
Yep.
We want to recognize
include everybody.
Right.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And that doesn't happen without help, right? So I mean, by all means, if you guys want to get involved in that, we'll put some information up to get a hold of Chad, and you can get a hold of him, make sure that whatever family member you want recognized is recognized as long as it's part of the trade.
Yep.
And the vision behind that, Andy was walking me through it earlier. That's going to be an amazing setup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This whole facility. And I can't wait for you to go around. I guess you got here. You still went straight to work.
We did a little bit of walking around,
good,
but
good.
He talked to me a little bit about the setup of it and how it's going to look and what the vibe's going to be when you walk into that Fallen Linemen's memorial, and the hairs on the back of my neck starts to stand up.
Awesome.
Like it's pretty cool. So and
look, the main thing with all that is really because we don't want to have to put any more names in here.
It.
Right?
We wish we could
ultimately we could stop.
Yeah.
And in there in the memorial building, we're going to start it with with the beginning of Lineman, how 1 and 2 would die, and how it's progressed to get better.
Yep.
But we're still not there because if we have one die, we're still And so it's an ongoing mission, and it takes all of us.
It does.
But it also gets back to that individual person. What's the worst possible outcome of what I'm doing? Don't take that shortcut.
Yeah.
Don't be safe. You know the rules. You know what you're supposed to do. Just don't take those risks.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you're exhausted, tired, it's 2 a.m. and you can get it done faster. It doesn't matter if you saw someone else do it that way 5 times and it worked for them. If you've got any kind of inclination or feeling that, man, I shouldn't be doing this, guess what? You probably shouldn't be doing it.
That's right.
And if you don't know, stop and ask somebody else. We work as a crew in this industry for a reason.
Yes.
It's because we all can't recognize everything all the time.
Yep.
So if you've got a feeling about it, I'm big on gut feelings and trusting your gut. And if something's telling you to trust your gut, you need to do it.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. Like if you think, should I do this? Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
If you have a question about, should I not do this? You probably should.
Yeah, we should talk about it. Yeah.
All right. And if I could just kind of go into that, because, dealing with a loved one passing, until you could really understand that. So us guys that are listening to this podcast, I mean, you hear about it. You hear about other guys passing away in our industry, and you may think to yourself, why did he even do that? Why did he do that?
Yeah.
But think about things that you've done, and we were all, I feel like I've been pretty fortunate in my life that not just maybe with work, but other things that, I'm still here. Yep. So it takes that, it's instant.
And it can happen to any of us.
Any of us.
If you think that it couldn't happen to you, I guarantee you it easily could.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're going to leave your wife, your kids, if you don't have that, your mother, your father, anything. And I mean, and to pick up the pieces, my wife passed away unexpectedly. So it wasn't on the job or anything, but it's unexpected. So I can understand, what these ladies go through because, I mean, you're left just, you don't know what to do. After that happened, I just ran. I didn't know what else to do,
Your life in an instant gets flipped upside down and you're saddled with things that you never even thought you'd be saddled with.
That's right.
The little things that your significant other does for you on a day in, day out basis that you don't even acknowledge and realize because we take it for granted. And now all of a sudden you're like, oh crap.
That's right.
It's been a month and no one's dusted or, just all that little stuff. They logged in and paid all the bills for me and I don't know any of the logins and stuff that's just crazy that you don't even realize.
You're so right.
Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Everybody goes and hides in that instant. I don't know how you wouldn't.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
Your brain just can't process.
Yeah. And that's where, with the foundation to help the ladies and the families, because it's such a hard, it's a hard time for them. And, and we talked about the reasons of all that, but yeah, it's, I think we started a foundation in 2013. It became a 501c3, and I think this memorial building is going to help bring more recognition to it, and we're going to continue to get. COVID happened, a lot of things happen and stuff, but we're getting back on our mission, and we're going to attack it hard and really get this to where we're going to help more and more families because a foundation is only as good as the donations you get.
Yeah.
And so if you only get so much donation, you have. Like this year was a horrible year for fatalities for whatever reason, but we can't help them as much as we want to.
Yeah, that bandwidth is only so much.
Right. Yeah, and basically, like a company, you can only grow so much capital.
Yeah.
And even though it's a 501c3, it's a for-profit business. We just give away the profit.
Yeah.
So we got to make money.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah. It takes support from everyone for sure. So when we talk about the industry and growing in the industry and stuff, where do you think the industry is headed? Do you think in 10 years from now that it's going to look the same, or you think there's going to be some things that are going to be pretty drastically different?
Well, it changed a lot in 5 years, so I can't
imagine. A lot, didn't it?
Yeah, and because I've been being out and now getting back, but so I can't imagine what 5 years. You think about robots and
smart grids
and all that.
Yeah.
I mean, we work for some customers that it's amazing. You just their systems. You to check in a transformer, you have a QR code, you check it in and make it so easy. I mean, just the whole technology aspect of this industry is really blown up, which I think it's great. And it's creating more opportunity we have more manufacturers today than we used to, which is going to lower prices and things and make it more affordable for companies or people to buy tools and things like that. So I like that aspect of it as long as they're good quality tools and things. And, but as far as the work, I don't ever really seeing that change. It's, until
it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah. Till power comes from just in the air, I guess. You always need lines. I don't know how that would ever stop.
I don't think in our lifetime we'll ever see
sure.
a place where linemen aren't needed. That's for sure.
Exactly right.
So what do you think would be one thing that utilities don't understand about the field, right? And being a contract company, what's something you wish utilities would understand a little bit more about your side of things?
All right. Well, that's a great question. And I say in the past, we always would go to the customer meetings and we always thought about, you can never tell the customer you're creating, you're making it hard on us to make money because you just, y'all are doing great. You didn't want to tell them anything, but they do really have to know. If you're not willing to tell them, where they're getting inefficiencies for us, then it's hard for us to make dollars. And so I appreciate that comment. Now, I don't know what the answer is for that, but I do know there is, and different customers are different for sure, but they do create inefficiencies sometimes for the contractors. And a lot, I think, would be, say in one customer, you have 3 inspectors. Now, one inspector wants it done this way, another inspector wants it done this way, another one that. But you have a spec book but this is old. Well, this is the way I want it done. Well, the problem comes in a lot of times. We see this a lot. It was, well, that inspector told me to do it this way. Well, that's not to spec. Well, then you got to go redo it.
Yeah.
Right. And now
so
we're
now you
going to
gotta go
redo
backward.
work that is on our own time.
Yeah.
You know,
That you were told was good at the time.
Told was good.
That
And
is frustrating.
So in that, I think really just think about it real quickly like that is that's really one of the struggles that we're having currently right now. I know. And if we could just if they could get on the same page in their district of having everything, this is what we're going to do, that would help out a lot.
I think that happens a lot in this industry. There's so many moving pieces, and the guy that's in charge out in the field wants it his way, but he's not the guy that's writing the check in the office, and that guy wants it a completely different way.
That's exactly right.
That does happen a lot.
Yep.
What's your view on the manpower in the industry? And we've got a different generation of kids coming up now that started with battery tools, and things are a little bit easier on that side of things, right? And not only has that changed for the industry, but the mental health and the brotherhood of the industry is changing, right? So what do you think is going on there? You think that it's a better culture for linemen to talk about things and to tell you, hey, I am having a bad day? Because I know when you started, it's probably real similar to when I started. If I came in, I was having a bad day, they did not want to hear about it. Right. You think that's getting better?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, it's crazy with that. There's more changes on that aspect of the industry with linemen in their family. They are becoming more family. And, used to in the day that, my wife would take the kids to the doctor. Well, these days, the guys are wanting to be a part of that and be a part of those families. And their willingness to say, hey, I had a bad day is for sure. You definitely want guys willing to say, or guys or gals, I'm sorry.
I think it's more accepted for people to tell you, hey, I had a rough night last night. My wife and I had a disagreement, or we're struggling. My kid's sick. We're taking him to the hospital tomorrow. My head's not in it. I think that's a little bit more accepted now than it was 20 years ago.
Right.
And it should be.
And it should. That's right. For sure. You want to know if that guy's not has his head in there, right?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I would definitely, if I was out on the field again, I want to know what happened to you last night and all that, and be willing to say. And as companies, we have to be willing to, listen and be willing and not look down on that guy for anything. And here's another thing, we're kind of a little talking about that. And we've been talking a lot about substance abuse in our industry. Yeah. And I think we have an issue. It's always kind of been an issue, but we're having a more and more, and not just in our industry, it's America, of course, but they're working to fight the drug wars and all that, but still in our industry, and really, how can we start changing that? Because I mean, and so I've been through a lot of things and done a lot of stuff, and it's mental health, along with substance abuse, man, is a real problem that we want to start with our foundation, start looking at, and how can we start helping our industry? Because it's a way out. You get involved and you get into hard drugs, there is a way out. It's possible, and I want guys to know that it is possible. And I was at a point in my life where I didn't, have to do stuff just to keep going and all that, but it is possible to get out of that and get clean and get your mind right and get off of that stuff.
And the first step is talking to somebody about it, right? Recognizing that, man, this isn't good for me. I don't know how I got here. It was a lot of, hard days and hard decisions, and one thing led to another. It happens.
Yes.
People, a lot of times, I feel like people switch to the substances just to get their brain to quit for a minute.
Right.
Because life is kicking their ass in one aspect or another, and they can't get their brain to shut off about it. So the only way they can relax is to have a little bit of whatever, couple drinks or whatever their go-to is.
That's right.
And it just kind of keeps evolving. And next thing you know, they're like, oh shit, how'd I get here?
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. And it goes right along with mental health, man. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep.
Thank you for that. And I think it's an area we can start addressing for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Good deal. So a little bit about this next section, we're gonna do just a little bit more of like a rapid fire type thing, right? First thing pops in your head.
Okay.
That kind of stuff.
Perfect.
We'll see.
Yeah. You failed the cut.
So what's one of the most dangerous things you've seen someone do in the industry? Anything pop into your head there?
Well, I can tell you the first time I got up in a bucket,
Yeah.
I was with a foreman, and he's like, and I'm out there, he's like, oh, you can, the bucket's insulated. You can take your glove off. So he took his glove off, grabbed the line, and put his tongue to it.
Oh, man.
So, and I followed suit.
Yeah.
Because
That's what we do.
this is what we do.
Yeah.
So that was probably, I wouldn't recommend that.
Yep. Not something that we do on the first day.
Right.
All right. So how about best piece of advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of advice. Let's see. It's up to me.
That's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah,
It
is.
And it doesn't matter if it's in your work career, if it's in your family life, whatever, it's up to you. And I think in these days, we look to try to blame a lot of people for a lot of things, but ultimately it's decisions that we make and the things that we do on a daily basis that will get us to the next level. If we want to continue to grow in the company or whatever, it's up to you.
Man, that is so awesome on so many levels, because you can change whatever is going on in your life that you don't like just by making some different decisions. I'm not saying they're easy decisions. I'm not saying it's going to be a cakewalk, but you can do it.
Yep. Yeah, and you're right. It's not easy. It sounds easy. It's not easy to do, but it is possible.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
And here's the thing about it. I think once you get through it, you look back on it and you're like, why would I even, like, it's even smoking cigarettes. Say, you smoke cigarettes. Like, I don't even know why I used to smoke cigarettes every day, smoke a pack a day.
Because everybody else was doing it.
Yeah. And it's like, now I don't want to. And so you think while you're smoking those cigarettes, I never can get off.
Yep.
But once you put your mind, you do get off of them and things. And you're like, why did I ever do that?
Yeah.
And our health, if I could mention this too, our health is all we got. We got one chance at this life.
That's it.
And keeping our bodies and what we put into our bodies is so important. And our health and our longevity of life, man. You want to live this life as long as you can. The afterlife is going to be great, if you're believers and stuff, but you want to do as much as you can. That little dash, they say that dash. What's in that dash?
And nobody wants to spend the last 20 years in such a bad shape that you can't enjoy it.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Live the best you can, make the good choices so that your body can hold up, so that you can enjoy what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah, I love it.
And these new, these older linemen, of course, the knees are bad and this and that, but nowadays they don't have that much pump, so they'll have a longer, they won't hurt as bad.
They're not running pop tools all the time and stuff like that. Yeah. So if you're taking one tool up in the bucket with you every time you go, what's your favorite tool?
Well, I guess a crescent wrench, but nowadays it's not a crescent wrench. It's like,
Guys are going, hold on, what? Yep.
Have that.
Yep. Crescent wrench was definitely one that we had to have all the time. Yep. Yeah, I'm good with that. It might date you a little bit, but I'm good with that answer.
Well, actually, today I go out and work with guys, and the first thing I grab is a crescent wrench. Like, hey, we got this powered tool. Like, okay, the person just used to grabbing a wrench.
Yep. Yeah, it's just in you at this point. So, what's one thing every apprentice should stop doing?
Stop getting on Facebook and worrying about what everybody else is doing. Worry about you and your next steps and your day life and what you're going to do, at your job and then with your families. Stop worrying about what everybody else is doing and how they're,
That stuff online is so fake.
Yeah.
And people get so caught up in it that it just messes their heads up.
Right.
Yeah.
Man, I can't tell you. No, and it's a distraction that we didn't have, right?
It. Yeah.
Like, what else was there to do whenever work stopped and there was, for whatever reason, what would you do? You cleaned out your truck, you organized your squeeze-ons, whatever.
Make up tie wire.
That's right. You do all that. But today what happens is work stops. Oh, let me see what everybody else is doing.
All the time.
And man, it's just, so you want to set yourself apart. And you want to continue to grow, and this industry can grow from the bottom to as high as you want to get. And it's just a matter of doing the things that you need to do. Get off that dang Facebook.
Heck yeah. All right. So, you going up in a bucket or are you climbing?
Well, today, bucket. But I do. We have a training facility, and I do climb with our guys. Like, I'm going tomorrow. I'll be back and we have a class going on this week, and going to get back tonight and go at least climb with them to show them that, hey, that I can still do it.
Yeah. I don't care what you guys say. I can still do it. I love it. So your favorite lineman saying, because there's a ton of them, right?
Yeah.
Can't see it from my house and all that stuff that these guys say all the time. What's your favorite lineman saying?
Well, that's a good one there. And I used to say that and hear that, but I don't believe in that at all, because you can see it from your house. It's your work on that job, so make sure it is quality, because your name is on that.
Exactly.
So that's really a good one that was said. But another lineman saying, It's coming hot.
There you go. Yeah, that's one we hear a lot, right?
Yeah.
Say it a lot, at least. You should say it a lot.
Yeah.
If you're not saying that before you make something hot, you got a problem. Yeah. So how about a misconception that Hollywood had about line work during the film? What was one main misconception? Because they don't understand our industry, right?
Right. Misconception. I would just say that they didn't realize how much went into getting power, and me being on set. And look, I got fired from T&D, we sold it, and because I was working on the movie, started a foundation. So the people that bought us, they're like, "You care too much. Go get, you
got
care
so many
too much.
other things going.
Go do that." And so, but I think it was perfect because I always say, like, if I couldn't have been up there, we could have had linemen and leotards. At least I was fighting for the little bit we did get to our industry.
Yep.
So I think me being up there and being able to talk with the stars and everything and give them the passion with it. So they really didn't realize how much went into building power lines. And the thing is anybody can look out there and it looks the same, right? Doesn't look like it's that much, but man, there's a lot that goes into that pole and them R's.
Yeah, I think that's a misconception that not only Hollywood has, but the general public has.
That's right.
They don't understand that, it's taking you 4 hours to get your lights back on. That's because there's a lot that goes into it. You should be glad that it's 4 hours because we've been up for 18 hours straight on other jobs before we came to this one.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. And well, one thing, pet peeve, I'm sure is to hear them say it's a telephone pole. They're a telephone pole.
Yep. I say the same thing all the time. I'm like, what'd you call it? They're like, Yep. I love it. So what's one thing that you could change about the industry overnight? If you could wave a magic wand and change something, what would you change?
Cell phone, Facebook.
Yeah.
Get people to where they would, if nothing's going on, straighten up your truck, have pride in what you do, pride in your work.
I wish we could get the guys to drop their phones in a grunt sack at the beginning of the day and get them back at the end of the day, kind of like they do it at school, right?
Yeah.
Like, I wish we could do that. Yeah. Unfortunately, as crews, we rely on them. It tells us how to get to the job every day.
Right.
I mean, use your GPS for stuff.
Yep.
I mean, it's probably not practical, but I do agree. I think they're a problem.
Yeah, and it is not. It is that, but it's so much of just whenever the work stops, fight the urge to get on the Facebook and TikToks, like go straighten out your truck, make it more efficient, so you can just
build that pride,
feed that pride.
Yep. Yeah. What do you want your legacy in the trade to be? What do you want people to remember you for?
I cared.
Yeah, the passion.
Yep, because it's on the bottom of the email, because we care.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. What keeps you motivated every day to fight the battle? Because the things you're doing they're an uphill battle. Right.
Yeah. So today, it's building. So we got involved with the companies and bringing, we have two, a union, non-union now, and really try. And is it possible to where we'll all get? I think it is. Like, why can't it be?
Yeah.
It's just somebody chooses to go work for this company or this company, or go to the union or the. It's really we all have choices. We all have individual choices, and who cares what everybody else does? And so I think that's something I'm really and love to have two companies starting from the ground up to really show it, because we're helping them and they're helping us, so we are kind of working together.
That's awesome.
And people say that would never be able to get done.
Yeah.
When we can get us to working together, wow! Like,
if everything else is changing in this industry, why can't that?
Exactly.
Right.
I mean, if two people were, from different union and non, and they were side by side and they didn't know anything and they were just talking as, they didn't know that, they would probably get along like, brothers for sure. No problems.
Yep.
And then as soon as that, it's just like, why, fellas? Like, it's
that animosity just shows up for no reason.
Yep, for no reason.
Yep. I love it. So if people want to reach out and they want to share with you a name for a fallen lineman, or they want to help for the Fallen Linemen Organization, so how can they find you?
So we have a website, fallenlinemen.org.
Okay.
And also, I put my number on the website. Anybody can call, contact me through that way. I could put our director, Mike Boyd, his number on there, and just all in any of those ways.
Perfect.
Sure.
Perfect. And everybody's got access to that. So all you have to do is get on there and search Fallen Linemen Organization, and it comes up. It's pretty simple. So, man, Chad, I want to thank you not only for taking time for us today, but for your contributions to the industry, for trying to make a difference and for going against the grain on a lot of things. I think that's a pretty awesome thing. For you guys that are listening out here, go out and support these guys. The passion that goes into this Fallen Linemen's Organization is definitely one of the most driven things I've seen. He doesn't do it because it's paying all of his bills and that kind of stuff. He does it because he's got a passion for the industry, for what's happening. And unfortunately, there's too many linemen getting hurt on this job every day. So go out there and support him. It's worth it.
And I tell you, thank you, because I think it is conversations like this. And even when you get back to talking about customers, it's conversations like this that we can drive the industry together. And so I greatly appreciate you taking the time to talk to me, and something that don't do very often. I don't like getting in front of people too much, but I really have enjoyed speaking with you and the openness and things that we could share. Because if we can be open, then and really not be offensive and all that, if we be open to things, then I think that's our first step. So
real conversation.
Great job that you're doing, man. Thank you.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. All right, so with that, we appreciate you guys showing up with us today. And until next time, let's talk about it.
That's it for today's episode of Power Grid Talks, from the bucket trucks to the boardrooms. I'm your host, Tom Williamson. I want to thank you for joining me as we talk to the people behind the scenes who keep our grid strong. If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give it a share, and leave a review so we can keep bringing more voices from across the utility world to the conversation table. You can also find us at PowerGridTalks.com. Until next time, stay safe and keep the power flowing.